You're tuned into Inspire FM 105.1 FM. It's Friday, 10th of October, and the time has now just gone 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mother's Planet, a show where there is always something to talk about in a productive and beneficial way. I am your host, Neelum, and joining me on the show this morning are my guests, Shazina and Bob. Morning, and welcome to the show.
Morning.
How are you, Bob?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, we're just coming up with a very busy time for us. So, yeah, we've got lots of demands on the charity, to be honest with you. So we're at
Yeah.
sixes and sevens. So, roll on Christmas. That's what I say.
Oh, wow. Don't say that. I just mentioned that last week about how quick that's coming. It's
Yeah.
just come so fast. So, Bob, shock the listeners. Tell us where you are joining us from this morning.
Yeah, well, I'm joining you from sunny Sunderland in the northeast,
Wow.
which is my hometown. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so it's yeah, it's something that obviously we're working nationally now. So it's always
Yeah.
lovely to reach out and be part of events like this is today and try to create a
Yeah.
lot more awareness, I think.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for taking the time out to join me on the show this morning. And morning, Shazina. This is your first time being
Yes,
on
this
air.
is.
How are you?
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Hi, Bob.
Morning, Chaz.
It's really good to be here. It's a very important subject, which where Bob and I are very passionate about.
Mhm.
We wanted to come and make people on the show more aware
Mhm.
about baby loss, really.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess the question to start off with first, listeners are probably going to be keen about to hear a little about yourselves. So if I could just get you to briefly introduce yourself to the listeners that are tuned in this morning.
So my name is Shazina. I'm a co-founder of Ibrahim's Gift, and I'm an ambassador for the For Lewis charity.
Thank you. And Bob.
Yeah, so I'm the chief executive of the charity For Lewis,
Mhm.
but more importantly, I'm Lewis's granddad, and that's the most important
Mhm.
thing to me.
Yes, and I will ask you to share a little bit about the story behind For Lewis and who Lewis was. But before we start, I think there's a lot of confusion around baby loss and what it actually is. Unless you're a parent that hasn't actually gone, or a grandparent, or had a family member that's actually gone through baby loss, not a lot of people understand what it is. So can we just get some I mean, this is news to me that it's now actually got an awareness month. There's a whole month around making people aware on baby loss. So can we get a bit of understanding about what baby loss actually is?
So baby loss is loss of any baby, any pregnancy,
Mhm.
to do with whether it's some medical reasons, any loss of a baby,
Mm.
any gestation is a loss. That's a life lost. So it's important that we recognise that. And the month of October every year marks baby loss awareness.
Mm.
This year, actually, it's the 22nd year that baby loss awareness
Wow.
is taking place. It's an opportunity to bring us together as a community, to give anybody touched by baby loss and pregnancy loss a safe and supportive space to share their experiences and know that they're not alone, really. It is okay not to be part of baby loss awareness, because some people struggle, and it's very personal. So you don't need to take part if you don't want to. But it's important to recognize and acknowledge that baby loss is a deeply traumatic experience. There are lots of events, like Bob says, up and down the country to mark baby loss awareness. Some of the local things that are happening is, as at the Luton Adults Hospital where I work, we are holding a ribbon display, a SANS ribbon display, and Sally, the bereavement midwife, has arranged for a ribbon wall for families to come along and tie coloured ribbons. There'll also be a service at the L&D next week. And on a global front, there's the Global Wave of Light that happens on the 15th of October at 7 p.m. And that can be as simple as that you light a candle in your own home, or you attend a national event. But at the heart of this month, really, Neelum, is that we remember our babies. There's an awareness of the impact and the support that's available. And there's a commitment to drive meaningful change in the care that is delivered.
Absolutely. And making people aware of what services are available,
Yeah.
because that was shock. My jaw hit the ground there when you said 22 years of Baby Loss Awareness Month. I was not aware of it's running for that long. So, this is something that many people like myself are not going to be aware of. So we're hoping to get that out. Now, listeners, I forgot to mention that we are live on air, reaching out through the airwaves at Inspire 105.1 FM. Get my words out there. And you can also connect to the show via the Inspire FM Facebook page, where we are streaming live. So you can send in any comments and any topics around today's topic, any questions around today's topic. We are also taking in WhatsApp and text messages on the studio number 07779 481 822. The topic of discussion today is talking about baby loss, and I have Shazina and Bob here with me this morning, and we will be joined by Sarah Owen, the local MP, a little later in the show, and talking a bit about understanding a bit more about the charities, I guess. So Bob, can I get you to explain to the listeners how For Louis was created? What's the story behind this?
Yeah, absolutely. If I can wind the clock back to 2009, my
Wow.
21-year-old daughter Kirsty was second year at university. Life was good, and she dropped the bombshell saying, "Dad, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." And after the initial, are you mad? Your career's gone and everything. What are you doing? Realization was that this is going to be kind of cool, because we're going to have a grandchild, our very first grandchild. And it was such a special moment for us. And Lewis was, it was confirmed she was having a boy at 20 weeks when she had a scan, and she named him Lewis straight away. So for that period of time, we knew him as Lewis. And of course, everything was going swimmingly. We did all the grandparent stuff. We bought the prams and the clothes and helped with the nursery and all those sorts of things in preparation for Lewis to come along. And we got to 38 weeks. And I got a call saying, I'm going into hospital. You're going to be a granddad this afternoon. And off she went with her mum, Tracy, and her husband, Michael. And then, of course, I'm sitting waiting by the phone, and basically what had happened was she'd gone in, and they put the heart monitor on her, and they just said, "Look, I'm really sorry, your baby's died," and of course that's when really that trauma hits for the whole family. And of course, at the time, my wife was there, and she just said, Kirsty just sat upright in her bed, and she just screamed at the top of her voice, "Mom, make him breathe, make him breathe." And as a grandparent of a child, or a parent of a daughter who's going through that experience, it is simply one of the worst things. There are no words. Um, you know, uh, we always made it better. Parents do make it better for the children, don't they? And when they fall down and they cry, we just pick them up and give them a kiss and a cuddle and rub their knee and make it better. But this is not fixable. And then of course, you have to then prepare to deliver a baby that's died, which I think is brutal. It's an awful thing, and you just want to protect your family. Of course you do. And of course that's what we did. And we had to go back to hospital 2 days later, and there were so many things wrong in the hospital, because it was a very much a taboo subject. And even in hospitals, they weren't prepared. They just, no bereavement midwife, no bereavement rooms. They just put us in a room that was bog standard. And of course you went in there, and there was pictures of mum's breastfeeding on the wall, and it was just dreadful. And mum was birthing in the next room. I could hear the baby crying, knowing that my grandson was going to be born silently. And of course, but what I would say is, when he was born, oh my days, it was one of the proudest moments for me, because we waited that long to meet him, and then we did get the chance to give him a cuddle and see his face and his hair and all those sorts of things, because he did have a life, albeit a womb life, and he changed a lot of our lives. And I think we were able to create lots of memories ourselves. But in terms of what was offered in the hospital, was just a poly bag with a lock of his hair and a smudged handprint, and that's all we were offered at the time. And here's a leaflet: go home. Any problems, go and see your GP. And that's kind of how it was left back then. And it just seems so final and not really enough for families. And I need to tell you that the pain of losing a child is immeasurable, and you have to go through that experience to actually to understand that totally. And I think just what Shazina was saying there, I think it's really important that in Baby Loss Awareness Week. And I know you got a shock there, saying this has been going on for 22 years, but
Yeah.
actually we through social media, it is becoming more acceptable for people to
Yeah.
talk about the loss of the
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And we carry this for the rest of our lives. This isn't
Yeah.
something that we get
Mm.
over. You've heard the saying, time's a great healer. But no, you don't get healed. This
No.
becomes your new normal, and you deal with it in a
Yeah.
in a different way. And I'm sure Shazina will back me up on that.
Yeah, it's a level of acceptance, but Bob, just hearing your story there, it's one thing for your daughter to experience it, but as grandparents, as you said, for your wife, I think it must have been the most difficult because that's her daughter there that's experiencing this, and it's the one time in her life she can't fix the problem, she can't fix what's gone on.
Do you know what
So,
I'd like to say as well, that the impact that it had on the family was so traumatic. We
yeah.
talk about PTSD, and Tracy and I do
Mm.
training days now right across the country, and she doesn't mind me telling you this because
Mm.
it's part of what happened to us. And 3 years after we lost Lewis, she tried to take her own life because she couldn't see a way out. She wanted to be with her grandson, and she became so poorly that she had to be sectioned under the Mental Health Act because she was a danger to herself. Now, if you meet her now, you would think that's not the same person, but that
Mm.
is the gravity that this can have an impact on a mum, a grandparent,
Yeah.
any member of the family, really, because you know it is post-traumatic stress disorder, and we're just going to make sure that we have, this is our remit as a charity, to
Yeah.
try and alleviate that, to make sure families
Yeah.
do get the best possible chance to survive, for want of a better word, just
Yeah.
to start that new journey of
Yeah.
grief, and just to get over those hurdles, to allow them to live their life the
Yes.
best way they can.
Yes, absolutely. And as you say, it's not getting over it. It's finding a way of accepting it and making it part of your life. Now, Shazina, I know that you mentioned that you had the Ibrahim Gift Charity, and I know that that's very dear to your heart. And you have a story to share with the listeners around this. Can I know what this is, and what inspired this charity?
So Ibrahim's Gift isn't actually a registered charity. It's under
Okay.
actually the umbrella of For Lewis. I
Okay.
didn't actually register it as a charity because I was very busy with all my other things, and I think that's how we connected. And we'll talk a bit more
Yeah.
about the partnership with For Lewis. But to start off, my journey wasn't very easy. I got married back in 2013,
Mhm.
and for about 6 years, my husband and I struggled to have a child, and it was sort of the reasons behind that, there was no real reason, so it was unexplained infertility, and then finally when we did become pregnant, it was a beautiful time. We're a very private family, and you find that in our culture that we are quite private about pregnancies and things like that, and when we hit 20 weeks is when it was like okay to say something.
Yeah.
So but unfortunately, I lost Ibrahim at 32 weeks of my pregnancy, so a very late loss, and he was born stillborn on the 21st of June in 2018.
Wow.
Again, like Bob has said, nothing prepares you for that. It's deeply personal, and this is the first time on the radio talking about this, and it's because it's just whenever you are able to come to some kind of terms with what's happened and you're able to talk about it. But again, some people never want to be public about that loss. But because my loss had happened after 24 weeks, I worked for the NHS, I was entitled to, and I didn't know this at the time, I was entitled to full maternity leave, and my husband
Wow.
also got 2 weeks paternity leave, and that was a bit of a shock when the letter came to the post saying, "Oh, you've got a year off." And I was like, "Well, I know that I'm not in a great state in my mental health,
Yeah.
but a year off is going to drive me insane."
Mm.
Because again, it's time for you to sit there and dwell on things, and sometimes people around you don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Actually, lots of times people don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's the correct way to say that,
They
and
don't know what to
they don't know
say.
what to say to you.
Yeah.
So you kind of become very isolated,
Mm.
and your first sort of few months, you do want to be isolated and deal with your grief, and you go through lots of things like the guilt of it. Maybe I did something wrong, the emotional aspects of it. There's a shock element, there's a disbelief that this has happened to me. And once you come to terms a little bit with that, you do want to mention their name, you do want to talk about them. And I think at that time, about 3 or 4 months in, after I lost Ibrahim, when I looked around, even very close friends and family didn't really want to address the subject. And I don't think it's their fault, because again, they've not been through it, they don't know how to approach the subject. But also, they probably thought at the time that maybe I was moving on and I didn't want to talk about my past, my experience. But for me, the passion of wanting to make healthcare better, like Bob says, there were lots of things, even 10 years on from when they had lost Lewis, that there were things that had to be changed. There was inconsistency in care that's been delivered. So at home, sort of facing that unimaginable pain of not having my child in my arms, and being part of the baby loss community, a community that I actually didn't sign up for, it chose me. I wanted to make a difference, and having that lived experience, and the fact that my firstborn son, had given me the title of being a mother. That was a very special gift. And for me, I wanted to make sure that I honored his legacy, even though that life was so short. So that's how Ibrahim's gift came about. I wanted to put a pack together that was a small gift of comfort. It includes essential items for Islamic burial, and along with meaningful keepsakes. So there's a white shroud material in there. There's a white memory blanket that you could keep, or the baby could have in its little coffin. There's a little white hat. There's a small attar bottle that you could scent your baby with and then keep that. There's the tasbih beads that we pray with that are a keepsake for yourself. And there's also the gift of a book called The Gift for Bereaved Parents. It's a hardback book, and it's something that I was gifted, and to date, I have my one sitting by my bedside table. It's a very much of a dip in, dip out book. It has beautiful sayings from the Quran and Hadith, and I find comfort from it, and I hoped that other families would too.
So, I love the pack that you put together, and, thank you for sharing your story, a very, very emotional story, but, I know you're in a much more stronger place today to talk about it, and I have to try and control my own tears and emotions around this. But, it's amazing that you've created this pack. So, what led you to think of the things and the items? Because I was really curious, thinking, I've had 4 miscarriages, and they happened at different stages in my life. And, they never went to term. They were always at 10 to 12 weeks, 13 weeks, I think, was the longest. But for me, I saw a flash, I saw a heartbeat in the scan. So it was a life. I don't know what I would have found comfort in after that loss. So how did you come about knowing what to put in the pack, that this is going to be something that somebody would find comfort in?
I think, Neelum, when you got a year off from work and you're sitting there,
a lot of thinking.
You're thinking a lot about what was happening. You live that experience every day, and you think, well, what did I not have? What would have helped me at that time? And because in the Islamic faith that we very, very swiftly, very much, when Ibrahim arrived, I only had a very short time with him that night, and the next day was Jummah. And what a beautiful day to bury my son, then Jummah, the day of Jummah. So I had to look for these things. I had my mum and dad's for support, and my husband and my siblings. And I had to say to him, look, what happens here? Because obviously, Islamically, if you give birth after 24 weeks, there's a soul there in that child. Therefore, the soul has a right to Islamic burial and a name to be given. And these things at the time, we had the hospital imam come and explain to us, because I never experienced a baby loss, so I didn't know what the rights of my child were. And when those things were explained to me, I had to then frantically get these things arranged. And I think what we came up with, and through consultation with our hospital mom locally at the Luton and Dunstable Hospital, and we wanted to make sure that it was very sensitive and very kind of basic things that were important for the time of loss, and also for later. but the cloth, as you know, we used for
Yeah.
shrouding, that was important. And the loss could happen at any time. So I delivered Ibrahim very late in the night. Shops open in Bury
Yeah.
Park, for example,
After
10, 11
11.
o'clock.
Yeah.
It's Jummah, you've got to bury baby. So it was those sort of things. The pack there, I like to say, is there to be used, but families sometimes like to get their own things. That's fine,
Yeah.
but it's also giving more precious time for them to spend on
Yeah.
making memories with their child, rather than thinking about the practicalities of the essentials they need for
Yeah.
burial.
Yeah.
That was what inspired it originally.
Yeah, and that's very thoughtful, and I love the concept, the idea of this. It's very nice to have that, because yes, it's not one of the things that you think of straight away, and it's not one of those things that you want to think. So, Bob, I'm curious to hear how you liaised with Shazina for Ibrahim Gift, how this partnership or collaboration came together.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously we started the charity back in 2010. That's how it started for us, and we
Mhm.
just created memory boxes
Mhm.
for all parents to have, and it went pretty mad, really, to be honest with you, because there wasn't that
Wow.
resource out there. So we're now supplying 200 hospitals and hospices right across the United Kingdom for free of this resource, and it's in hospital, so the families, like I said before, who are going through a trauma, they can't think for themselves
Yeah.
what they need, and you only have a short space of time to create those memories. And
Mm.
we've developed lots of different products, so we've just touched basically a little bit on what we do, but it was always in our mind that we wanted to help families from the Muslim culture also. And
Mm.
it was kind of, but it's a very religious pack, isn't it? So
Mm.
it was kind of, because it's not our religion and it wasn't our culture, it was a bit of a learning curve for us.
Mm.
So we knew that would have to be developed, would take time, and we met we host a forum as well for bereavement midwives,
Yeah.
and we had the bereavement midwife from L&D who came along to one of our meetings, and she said, "I need to show you this," and she showed us,
Mm.
and I was like, "That is fantastic. That would
Wow.
really help."
Mm.
And of course, so um, I'll put you in touch with Shazina and Amran, and that's what we
Mm.
did. And
Yeah.
we met up in Watford, I think it was, that first time,
Mhm.
and we
Yeah.
talked at length about how we could develop this. And as Shazina said, a very private family, and we already have this setup of the experience of supporting families through the
Mm.
loss of a child. Um, what I should have said really at the beginning, just to give you some context of it, when Lewis died, 17 families every single day would have a stillbirth or a neonatal death. That's the numbers. They
Wow.
are huge numbers. So
I was
this is
just
more
gonna ask
common.
for the statistics. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this
that's
is
wow.
this is really, really common. So we need to be able to provide support for these families. And through Ibrahim's Gift, I think it was one of those things that, we connected as a family as well, didn't we, Shazina? We
Yeah, we
really
did.
we got on really well straight away. And I remember we said, right, we'll try and roll this out, and we worked together, got everything together, rolled it out. And I remember a story where, remember, we're in Sunderland, by the way, but
Mm.
there was an imam in Watford Hospital, actually, and he said to the girls, "I need we need some cotton sheets, we need some sheets," and
Mm.
they brought the Ibrahim's Gift pack, and he was like, "What is this?" And he said, there's a charity in Sunderland who are manufacturing these now. And he's like,
Wow.
"I need to find out what's going on." And he
Wow.
literally drove 250 miles.
Mm.
He turned up at our factory at 5 o'clock in the evening, and he just said, "I just needed to see what you are doing here."
Wow.
And he was blown away, I think. And all the things are so carefully thought out to be able to um, support the families. And I think, even, although I'm the chief executive here, I often get the job of cutting the
Mm.
shrouds into the right
Mm.
sizes.
Mm.
So we're very, very hands on. And even, the white musk that we put in the I always get this wrong, don't I, Shaz?
Attar, attar,
Utta, utta.
Yeah. Yeah.
attar.
So we actually fill those, because we want those packs to be made with a lot of empathy and a lot of love.
Yeah.
We don't want to just get it off the shelf. We want people to actually assemble it and put it together and give it as a gift. And I think that,
Mm.
and it was always meant to go alongside our memory boxes. It's not instead of, it's to go
Yeah.
with that.
With yeah.
Um, because I felt that it was really important. And that Imam actually said to me at the time, he said, I can't understand why somebody not from our culture was wanting to support all our
Wow.
cultural things. And I just said, well,
Yeah.
isn't the loss of a child the same?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
You
the
know.
impact is the same. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so we very much wanted it to help. And I think now, you know, 7,000 packs, I think we've put out into the NHS nationally now. So they're available
Wow.
all over the country, and they're very well received as well. So, yeah, I think it's knocking down bridges and building these bigger bridges, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're going in the right direction to be able to support families. So that's how we
Yeah.
got together, and
Wow.
the rest is history, as they say.
So, Bob, sorry to interrupt you. We've got about 10 seconds left, believe it or not, until we go over to a short commercial break. Listeners, do stay tuned in because I will be joined by Sarah Owen in the second half of the show as well, where we'll be discussing in more detail. But for now, go rejoin us after a break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
जब भी आपके दरवाजे पे कोई दस्तक हो तो छोटे बच्चों को दरवाजा खोलने से मना करें और खुद भी दरवाजा खोलने से पहले इस बात की तसल्ली कर लें कि दस्तक देने वाले से आप और आपका घर महफूज है। इंस्पायर एफएम कम्युनिटी अवेयरनेस मैसेज।
Why do Tops Pizza deliver the top pizzas in Luton? For a start, all the toppings are 100% halal and Tops use fresh dough every day. Then there's the cheese, the highest quality available. And when it comes to food preparation, cleanliness is taken as part of our faith. So that just leaves the taste, choice, and great offers, including buy one, get one free on all medium, large, and extra large pizzas. Tops Pizzas, Wellington Street, LU1 5AA. Order online, topspizza.com or via Just Eat. Download our app or call 01582 72 5000.
Lee Grave Heating Supplies. With over 20 years of experience, we're the largest independent plumbers merchant in the area, specialising in all types of plumbing and heating, as well as combination boilers and megaflow cylinders. Whether you need a new bathroom or a complete new heating system, LHS is the place. Come along to our brand new bathroom showroom at Unit 1, 3 Chorlend Lane, Luton, to see the latest range of quality bathrooms. Or log on to leegrave.net. We're an Interpart approved stockist for all genuine spares. Our new store in Bedford is now also fully opened. Lee Grave Heating Supplies. Call Luton 84 86 88.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن من المعروف أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. That it is a good deed that you meet your brother with a smiling face.
Celebrate in style at the Grand Royale, Luton's premier banqueting hall, offering elegance, luxury and seamless event planning. Host up to 750 guests with top-tier catering, stunning decor, photography, videography, hair and makeup, DJ, dance floor and expert event management, all under one roof. Whether it's a wedding, birthday or corporate event, let's witness the happy family moments together. Call 01582 551913 or visit grandroyale.co.uk today.
It doesn't take much to bring some difference. You give some change, which makes a change. Because nothing gets mileage like a charity. Just a little change turns into a chain. And before we know it, the results are massive. So give a little to make a big difference. For donations, call now. UKIM 0207 387 2157.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. This is me, Baby Bilal.
And it's me, Furman Giles.
We are here to tell you about the kids' right show that you must tune into because Brother Khalil, I don't know where he is. He's not here at the moment. Furman Giles, where do you think he is?
Well, I think he's probably sleeping somewhere.
Oh, okay then. Well, whatever the case is, guys, make sure you tune into
The Kids Round Show.
and Inspire 105.1 FM.
The UK's finest.
Okay, then.
Hold on, sorry I'm late, guys. Yeah, let me do the jingle now. Okay, this is Khalil Muhammad and
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. It's Friday, 10th of October, and the time has now just gone 10:30. Welcome back to Mother's Planet. I'm your host, Neelum, and joining me on the show this morning are my guests, Shazina and Bob. And I am also now joined by Sarah Owen. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So thank you so much, Sarah, for taking the time out to join me on the show this morning. Sarah has been leading a very important campaign around baby loss. And I know this has been quite a deeply emotional journey for yourself as well from a personal perspective. So, Sarah, could I get you to start a little bit about sharing your journey to take on this cause, and also, you know, the legislation that's changed, the laws that have passed through as well?
Yeah, sure. But before I start, I just want to say a massive well done and full of admiration for Bob and for Shazina for the work that they do in the most difficult time. It is utterly a godsend, really, the work that they do for people in their darkest time. And I think that's it now, that we recognise in law, as we do in society, that miscarriage and baby loss is that it is a loss, and that we talk about it, and we talk about it as such. And I think society has changed its views around miscarriage and baby loss, but actually legislation was far too slow. And that's what I had realised. I'd known that before. I'd experienced miscarriage myself personally. I've had 3, 2 before I was an MP and 1 while I was a serving MP. And each time is incredibly different. You feel different. You're in different situations. People react differently as well. I think after the first one, people were very much, they used different language to maybe perhaps the third one or the fourth one. It's very different.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I had done before I was an MP was I'd worked with different workers as a trade unionist. I'd worked with people that had worked in Amazon who had miscarried in the toilets and been forced to go back onto the warehouse floor and keep their pick rate up. I had worked with care workers who hid the fact that they had miscarried because they didn't want their employers to know that they were pregnant, because their work was so insecure that they were worried they would just get sacked or wouldn't be chosen for certain jobs. And then there are other women who didn't say anything and were forced, or did say something and were forced to take sick leave. Which is completely inappropriate for this situation. Yes, there are some physicalities around miscarrying, but that is not all you are feeling. There is a huge amount of grief within that. And so this legislative change, it's coming into the beefing up of workers' rights in the Employment Rights Bill. And it will mean that people who miscarry, and this is both for the man and the woman, will be entitled to bereavement leave. They won't be forced to take sick leave. It changes the whole conversation that you would have with your employer. And it's pretty groundbreaking. We are one of only 4 countries in the entire world that will recognise miscarriage as the bereavement that it is.
Wow, how amazing is that? And I know, Sarah, you touched on having had 3. I've had 4, and yes, you know, once you pass the first and the second, it's like, well, it's the third one now. Just, you know, crack on with your life. You've just got to get on with things. So this bill is huge, and it's a huge change. Because I recall having had those miscarriages at the time of work, and yes, we took sick leave, and that was it. And it was just a couple of days off, and then crack on with it. You've got to get back to work, and you know that morning didn't really happen, and now people are being given that chance to actually, you know, mourn that loss. Explain to me a little bit about why you felt this was an important change to make. I mean, I heard from some of the stories that you mentioned, you worked with people where they just go to the toilet and have their miscarriage there and then crack on with work. You know, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for your losses, Neelum. And I think this is important to recognise that everybody in the workplace doesn't have equal rights,
Yeah.
and particularly the one that I'd explained around miscarrying in the toilet. They were forced to go back to work. It wasn't their choice. They were told, you go back to work, particularly if you're an agency worker with even fewer rights than others. So it is important. Like most people have said to me, I can't believe this isn't in law already. And that there are employers that already do this and some that just really don't. So why do we need legislation to do this? It's because we need legislation to force employers to do this.
Yes.
We really do. And also to give good employers a structure and policies around it to be able to provide it in the best possible way. Because I think some employers want to do it, but just didn't know how to do it.
Yes.
And there are really good employers that are doing it. The NHS is the largest public sector employer of women, and they've been offering it for over a year now. And it's had negligible costs to them because, as you say, people would take sick leave, or some people would just leave entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the question to ask you, how will this change now impact parents in real terms? And I guess Bob and Shazina, feel free to enter in and respond to this question from an emotional and practical perspective, because yes, sick leave is a couple of days or a week at the most, and now to be given that bereavement time, you've got a few more weeks to actually come to terms with this. So how how do you think this will impact?
I'd just like to say that I think Sarah's touched on it, but the fact that you have a partner, there's also concentration around the female because we have the baby, we deliver baby if it's a miscarriage, etc. And we are the main person in that, but we couldn't do it without our partners, and so the men having also the same whatever can be given in terms of support is also there for them. So if there is a leave that's been given, like for example I explained earlier on that because I had a stillbirth, in the NHS there was already guidance about late miscarriage, late stillbirth or losses of pregnancy, where you were entitled to that year off. So I got a year off, and Amran did get paternity leave off. But like Sarah's saying, if you've had an earlier miscarriage, that's the areas where, and earlier losses, you weren't having this bill really does make a massive, huge difference, because at any loss, at any stage of pregnancy is a loss, and the emotional, physical and mental trauma associated with that is huge. And we need to take care of that, because in the long-term impact on the individual and healthcare is worse if you don't deal with it earlier, basically.
And Bob, how do you see parents benefiting from this? I mean, obviously there's signs that there's going to be huge impact in this, but how do you think it would I'm just going back to thinking about your daughter when she had that horrific experience. How would this bill have changed her life?
Well, I just listen in there, I think we do an early miscarriage box as well. In fact, we do two different ones, one for 8 to 12 weeks, so very, very early boxes as well.
Wow.
But I think so it's only recently that we've had legislation in place that you can now register those births. And I think that's really, really important, because our memory box, I think at that time, because that wasn't available, it validated that you were pregnant, that you did have a life. And let's remember a miscarriage is anything pre-24 weeks. So that potentially is, a lot of families feel robbed of that. And I know you mentioned there about sick notes, and that really upset me really badly, because they're not sick. Do you know what I mean? It has to be that paternal leave and that maternal leave that you need. And I don't, it's just for me, it's a misunderstanding of what that experience means to families, how deep rooted it is. This is a lifelong legacy, and you guys have talked eloquently about and openly about your losses as well. And I think that's really good that we're doing that now. But I think it's not, we want our children to be seen. We want our experiences to be seen. And you have had that life. And I think it's really, really important that that's recognized now. So, and that, again, that helps families to survive and move on, doesn't it? And get on with their new normal, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, absolutely. It is a very emotional time. And, I studied an Islamic course where it was actually based on menstruation, but there was an aspect on it where we talked about miscarriage. And it was only then when I studied it in detail that I found out that those losses that I had, they were actually lives. I lost a baby that had a life, and there was so much more that I needed to do that I didn't do at the time because I wasn't aware of it. And it was only after studying this and learning that I thought, wow, there's so much education that we need to do even for our own community, because I was totally unaware that as soon as you see that flicker of light in a scan, that's a soul, and that's a heartbeat, and that's a soul, that's a living soul. So it has to be given its right. And I didn't know this. My miscarriages were wrapped up in a tissue, flushed down the toilet, gone. I don't know where they are. And so when I heard of it like that, the emotion that ran through me was just, it was unbelievable, because I felt like I had let my babies down. I didn't give them the right then. And I mean, I can talk about it now without crying, but it was a very difficult concept to learn in that course without crying to the teacher, saying, I didn't do it right. So I don't want anyone to make those mistakes now. So, I think it's fantastic. Bob mentioned, and I think Bob's probably lost a bit of internet connection. But Bob mentioned the pack that they're doing from 8 to 12 weeks, which is fantastic, because, I feel, and I know that I would have immensely benefited from something like that made me understand that this was a life that was lost. I don't see Bob online at the moment. So Shazina, just some statistics around this. If I can just get you to share some of the statistics around baby loss in the UK, and how are you seeing change? Is there improvements?
So sadly, there's a 1 in 4 pregnancies that end in miscarriage, stillbirth, or early child loss. The recent statistics from Tommy's revealed that 1 in 2 adults, in the UK say that they or someone they know has experienced at least one form of pregnancy or baby loss. That's huge.
Yeah.
That half the population knows someone or have personally experienced it. So it's not like a small thing that's happening out there. And I think we are seeing changes, and the more we talk about baby loss, the more awareness we raise. And we see in our own South Asian communities that families do want to talk about it. I've had people come to me and say, could you help me find my baby's grave? Could you help me, put a headstone? And that was 30 years ago. They had a loss. But the younger generation in particular are leading this change as well in terms of social media platforms. There's so many things on Instagram and Facebook now. They create safe spaces for people to share, support each other and connect. And that's really important, connecting, because we aren't not alone. There are charities out there. There are bigger charities like Tommy's and Sands. But for Lewis, as a For Lewis ambassador, there's a lot that we do in terms of support. It's not just what we make as keepsakes and memories. It's also supporting families. And like Bob and the team have done for myself, they just took me in with open arms. They are 250 miles away. So I am very blessed to have them in my life, and very blessed to say that they have supported me hugely, immensely, and the whole team are really amazing. And people want to support the work that is going on. They can get involved.
I think Bob may be back on now.
Is he there?
Yes, Bob, can you hear me?
Is he there?
I'm not sure if the tech team have connected. I can see Bob. Yes, he's there. Hi, Bob.
Sorry about that.
We lost you, but you are 205 miles away, so I guess we'll let you off. The internet can let us down. Bob, I mean, you mentioned earlier, you have a factory, you are cutting cloth. You had this imam come from Watford and say, why are you so invested in this? And especially to reach out to, the Muslim community, why a non-Muslim would help out a Muslim community, especially in the times that we're living in right now, where, everything's being questioned. I am amazed at the work that you do. How is this work being funded? How can people get involved to support it? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, as a charity, we give everything away for free. Literally,
Yeah.
there's no charge for anything. I think, for example, a memory box that we have costs us about £50 to assemble.
Wow.
Ibrahim's gift packs, I would say, we talked about this yesterday, I think, Shazina, didn't we? But the
Yeah.
prices are constantly going up,
Yeah.
and the cost of that's just gone up. I think it's about £15 per pack now. And when you think that we've done 7,000 of those, I can't do the maths. It's a lot of money. But we're under a lot of pressure, and probably Sarah might be able to help us out with this. But obviously, we've got 9 staff here now, and of course, because we're throwing everything back into the NHS, which is through obviously bereavement rooms, which are very expensive. We've just done one in Durham actually, which was just shy of £300,000. So we do the bereavement rooms. We also do the cuddle cots and the cuddle blankets, which allows families to spend more time. Again, very, very expensive, and it's all going to the NHS. But of course, with the extra NI payments that we're having to pull out now, it's really, really biting hard, to the point we've actually we were going to employ somebody else, but we've had to put the stops on it at the moment, because as a charity, we're not a business. Although we're run like a business, we're not selling anything. So funding is massively important to us, because we rent the factory that we're in, and it's £30,000 before you even put the lights on. So we're having to generate a lot of money. So in terms of where Ibrahim's gift is, I think it's one of those things that, for us, the awareness is massive to let the Muslim community know that we're here to support you all, and all your families, and we just want to be able to do that. But even if it comes from our funding that we've got elsewhere, we'll draw off that and make sure that resource is carried through, because we have seen the benefits of that, and we just want to support as many people as we can, from whatever religion or culture. I've got to be honest, because I said before, the loss of a child is the same wherever your beliefs are and wherever you come from. And I know we're 250 miles away from you, but we're still the same people. We're still the same people.
Absolutely, and I know Shazina would agree with me, but as Muslims, we're very reserved about speaking about anything negative that's happened in our life. So if it's something negative, you don't want to talk about it. And I think even in recent times, anything that's positive, people don't want to talk about it either, because we don't want anyone to know. No one can find out about what we're doing. So a loss like this, in some cultures and communities, it's an embarrassment. You as a mum fail to carry that pregnancy through, and the amount of times that I stood back and questioned things that I did, something that I made a mistake on, I can't even count on my hands. Sarah, you'd probably agree with this. I blamed myself.
Yeah, that's like the first reaction. You think, could I have done anything differently? Which is why I think when Bob talked about the sick leave, and you did as well, Neelum, like, I think it's really important that we recognise that sick leave isn't appropriate, because it kind of reinforces the feeling that there's something wrong with you, or that you did something wrong, and it isn't. As Shazina said, it is part of the pregnancy journey for so many people. 1 in 4, as we said, like a quarter of all pregnancies. That's huge. And yet we don't talk about it. And in our committee report, we said that this has to be part of the education for boys and for girls, for people to know that this is part of the pregnancy journey for so many people. And it means that the new legislation also includes other types of pregnancy loss. So terminations for medical reasons, IVF, embryo transfer loss, molar pregnancies as well. So it isn't. So we are widening that understanding. And I think that's really important, so that we can break that stigma. And when you said that we don't talk about things that are negative, I think for so long, and for a long time, you would think of a miscarriage as a negative, but actually the longer I've gone on and spoken about it, actually, I don't want to feel like that they are a secret. They weren't a secret. They're not a shame. They're part of our lives and part of our family. And for me, that's quite a long journey. And I think that's quite a long journey for society as well. And particularly cultural barriers, like my mum's East Asian. It's not something that we would have talked about, or if we did talk about it, it would be in very black and white terms. And I think that culture is changing. And I've had 80-year-old women contact me and say, I am glad that we are able to talk about this now. I've kept it a secret for so long.
Yeah.
So we think about this impacting people of kind of child rearing age, but actually it's impacting, I think, multi-generations.
Yes.
And Bob's right about the support that we need post for charities and for organisations, but for the NHS, we've got the brand new maternity wing at Luton and Dunstable Hospital, and there is a whole bereavement suite in there, in a way that we would never have had before. Like, probably embarrassing the architect, but when we went round for the first time with hard hats and it was an empty shell, it was like it was the first time I'd been on a maternity ward that had been designed for women and with families in mind. The fact that there was a toilet in every bay rather than having to cross a corridor, the fact that there was going to be a bereavement suite and a garden, and for people to have time, and how sensitively that's going to be decorated and put together. It really is going to be such an asset to our society and to our local area. It really is.
Yeah, just touching on,
sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think, Sarah, I think it's one of those things that, you know, we've been doing this for a long time. We've got a great relationship with the NHS and staff right across the country. And my remit is always kind of, you know, if we invest in supporting these bereaved families, you are stopping them coming round the other back door with mental illnesses, which will cost tenfold more than what we're spending. So even if we help one person by, you know, guiding them through that and supporting them through bereavement suites, private areas, because that all that affects you. And I said earlier in the program about how my daughter, and how I could hear a baby crying in the next room, and my daughter was going to deliver a baby silently, and that really affected our mental well-being. And I think it should be recognised that we need to be doing more.
Those bereavement suites are soundproof. They're soundproof.
They are amazing. As Sarah's saying, I work there, and I've been involved in those bereavement suite projects. They've now been named, Sarah. They're called the Snowdrop Suites and the Snowdrop Garden. We are getting ready and gearing up to plant flowers in the Snowdrop Garden. So if people want to get involved, they can. It's just been amazing to be part of that, and also for our local hospital to listen. And I had that sort of unique hat, I guess, on that I worked there. I've worked there 2 decades now. So I was able to speak to David, our chief exec, and Amran, my husband, worked there as well. So we were able to speak to him personally about our loss after we lost Ibrahim. And, you know, he mentioned these plans, and we were like, yeah, we don't know if they were going to materialize. And it was a very emotional time when we first, again, with hard hats on, went to see this building. And now to actually have been around it with you know, suites and beds on order, and a garden being for plants being brought in next week actually to be planted. It's just amazing. And for it's truly you know, to be able to for them to have listened to families, it's been really, really emotional for us.
And it's fantastic to hear this, you know, and I'm sure Bob, you know, hearing that it's soundproof, and not having those insensitive pictures of a mum nursing a child, you know, is going to be it'll have phenomenal impact. And I guess, Bob, you hit the nail on the head. You have to deal with these things now, because if you don't, it's just a domino effect. There'll be something else that you're dealing with. They'll come in for something else, or, you know, you've let someone slip through the net with a severe mental health issue here. I'm pressed for time, listeners, guys. I've got about 3 minutes before we end the show. So I just wanted to ask, for those that are tuned in this morning, you know, whether as individuals, employers, or just community members, how can they help anyone that's experienced the loss of a baby? And this is for all of you, just maybe to give a point each.
I'd like to say that it's World Mental Health Day today, and it's Blessed Friday for us, Jummah. Just check in on someone, whether they're okay. You know, just send a text message. It really makes a difference to anybody that has lost a baby out there. It doesn't matter when that loss was. It could be 20 years ago, but the impact is lifelong.
Thank you, Shazina. And Bob?
Yeah, I mean, we've got we've got our social medias. If everybody's struggling, doesn't matter where you are in the country, actually, you can just drop us a line. We've got, families that we deal with right across the country. And I think, obviously, we are based in Sunderland. I'm actually coming down to Hitchin next month to a company to actually make memory boxes. So the corporate side are supporting us as well. So, but of course, there's an open invitation to come and visit us here in Sunderland if anybody wants to travel up. They often do. The distance is not a really huge problem, but you can come and make memory boxes and Ibrahim's gift packs, whatever you'd like to do, and that really helps the families too.
Thank you. Sarah, sorry to be so mean, but you've got about 50 seconds.
That's okay. I would say donate to fantastic organisations like Ibrahim's Gift and For Lewis. But also, if you are pregnant following Miscarriage Association, of which I'm an ambassador for, they have such fantastic support and information for pregnancy following miscarriage and baby loss. It's really important that you get that support throughout your pregnancy journey.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you all. A fantastic show. I have no doubt listeners have truly benefited from that. And listeners, if you have missed out on any of the websites, contacts that have been shared, fear not. I will get these posted onto the Inspire FM Facebook page. So please do keep an eye out on the post then. But for now, thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best and Friday blessings to you all.